Welcome to Razep Africa, the heartbeat of the continent in one show.
Welcome back. You are still on to Razep Africa on Global TV, Abuja. I am Wime Anete, and I told you earlier that I'm going to be here with Simbiat Amzat. We're going to be discussing a whole lot that has to do with Africa. But let me tell you that across Africa, activism is increasingly moving beyond traditional spaces into the digital world. And conversations are always sparking, voices have been amplified, and movements have been given birth to. Now, what begins sometimes as a very simple post can evolve into a powerful campaign, and it draws attention to governance, sometimes social justice, sometimes accountability, and other times human rights issues across the continent. Over time, what we call hashtags have become more than just trending phrases. They have actually served as rallying points for collective action, mobilizing citizens, shaping public discourse, and in some cases influencing policy conversations. From just mere calls for justice to demands for reforms, digital activism is gradually redefining how Africans engage with leadership and participating in shaping their societies. And therefore, today, we'll be sitting down here to explore what we call the trend to transformation. And so that's where our discuss will be this morning, trend to transformation. And we'll be focusing on digital activism in Africa. And we'll be looking at how hashtags move from just being online conversations to real-world impact, and whether these digital movements are creating lasting change across the continent. And therefore, just with me again, Simbiat Amzat. Let me greet you again. Good morning.
Good morning. Good morning again. Good morning again today.
And again. And again. Okay, so Simbiat, it's actually a very big call for concern, because what is actually sometimes just on the social media space and sometimes starts very little, gradually get into the real world.
Into the real world.
You know.
That's where the word digital activism comes from.
Exactly.
So when we talk about digital activism, we talk about activism, that's the use of online platforms, particularly social media, to spark change, to mobilize people, just to correct a wrong that maybe somebody saw the wrong and like, okay, I need to make a post about this, and then somehow one or two people can relate to that same situation, and then they decide to amplify it, and before you know it, it goes into spaces that you don't even think that it will go beyond your own personal profile on maybe X or maybe Facebook, and then it becomes conversations that people start having in government houses, in schools, on the streets, and even on media platforms like this. So I think digital activism is something that has come to stay, and we are all up for it as long as we get to see the actual change that it brings.
You know, when you mentioned the fact that digital activism grows, and it grows sometimes from just an online post to a single post on the social space, and it now grows sometimes into the small gatherings, and from there you now hear a whole lot of plans, and it becomes very big, and
it becomes a movement.
Yeah, it becomes a movement. And it gradually gives me that concern. Why is it actually growing, in Africa? And when it wants to grow in Africa, it grows rapidly. It grows beyond what someone can actually say, let's put an end to it as quickly as possible.
At because the point, it grows beyond the control of the actual poster.
Yeah.
Because at that point, you don't even you can't control who repost or who even engage the conversation. It just sometimes that's why when we are trying to create an hashtag, we should make sure that it is something that it is concerning, not something that you just fabricate, because you don't know how far this can go. It can even go beyond Africa, and then that is you putting Africa in a kind of spotlight, whether good or bad. So if it is an hashtag, if it is a hashtag that will spark change, I will spark reaction, of course it is welcome. But if it's something that you just want to form just so that you can trend, or just so that it can go viral, I don't.
You mentioned something, Simbiat Amzat. I am very concerned about what you just mentioned. The way it grows from a single post, and then it becomes a much talked about event, even outside Africa, and it gives us, with your word, you say it gives us a bad light. When it is something bad, and then gives us,
yes.
So sometimes when you said that, I begin to think, should we maybe, because it is something bad, should we not talk about it? Should we not, give it hashtags?
No, I'm not saying that we cannot talk about something bad. I'm saying that if it is true, if it is real, something that happens, of course it's fine. But if it is fabricated, that is when we need to draw the line. If it's fabricated and it's a lie, or if you're just doing it for monetization's sake, or you just want to blow your own account or your own page, because you never can tell where it's supposed to go to.
Well, but of course, we are still talking about digital activism, and our concern is when it just starts from just a single hashtag, and from there maybe it will now get us to getting to talk about how hashtags become a new form of civic engagement. And this has actually caused a very big concern to a whole lot of persons, even activists, who probably sometimes do not even know that they can actually go this far. But at the end of the day, with just a single hashtag, it becomes something that everyone wants to get into.
About hashtags is that it makes conversation easier to track.
Yeah.
Sometimes everybody has different opinion, but the moment there's a particular hashtag tied to it, when you even want to search for it and you just click, when you just type it, it brings different opinions for you. You don't have to start going through different corners just to get into the meat of the story or what the hashtag is actually about. It makes, like, even if you want to contribute to it, you already know where it is being tied to, you already know what you want to talk about, you already know where you want to direct the concern, you already know what you want to direct it to. So yes, it's becoming a form of civic engagement, and especially youth. If you look at it, it even makes the youth more interested in participating in politics or even having say in terms of governance, because a whole lot of times, if it's something that is just happening in the traditional media, most of we youths, we are not even interested. But once it is, and once we create an hashtag around it and it is happening on social media, then people want to jump into the conversation just to say, oh, me too, I was there. I said something about it. I said this, I said that. In case, some people used to do it just so that maybe when they want to contest or do something in terms of politics in the nearest future, they'll be able to bring us, oh, I've been part, I've participated in this
got
before.
Into it,
And somehow it just gives you that sense of participation and
the people. And just a little concern. It looks as though hashtags do not grow until there's something that looks like we're actually fighting against a particular thing. I don't know if that is also your concern, because we're talking about civic engagement. Okay, so I have hashtags over time about what I do, and so I sit back and make a post in just right inside my room, and after making that post, I put the hashtag golden voice, and it doesn't grow. People don't get to talk about it. They don't engage because
maybe because
it's supposed to be a civic engagement too.
It's not. There's no unity in it, because it doesn't concern a whole lot of fine. You're trying to build your own brand. It doesn't concern your next door neighbor, or it doesn't concern the next.
Okay, so my growth does not actually concern my next door neighbor.
Well, as
an individual,
it's hard. It's hard for you to just bring up an hashtag and then it just happens. It just goes viral. But if it is tied to maybe a political conversation or something governance related, then it will grow viral because it concerns everybody. We are all citizens of Nigeria or Africa.
So maybe sometimes I'm also thinking maybe because there is nothing I'm actually contesting for today, then the hashtag will not grow. But maybe sometime in the nearest future, I say I want to become governor, I want to become president of Nigeria, and then everyone will just, those who are actually going to be supporting will now have to grow the hashtag golden voice. This guy has actually been there over time and he has been doing this, and then they go proudly to get the hashtag. But my concern is, since it's actually an engagement that is actually civic, maybe we should also try to see how to grow the hashtags of persons who are probably just trying to see how to grow themselves. That is actually my concern. They are actually doing something that would grow them. They are civil. They are not doing something that will actually fight or, yesterday we talked about incite people. So is it until it is something that will incite people to probably get out there with all the veins in their neck, yeah, exactly. So that's when the hashtags will, really, really have something. But what happens to those hashtags? Also trying to see how to grow them and get them to become better persons in the society. Can we also, see how to buy into such so that we can see how to help people?
We're not even talking about hashtags alone. We're talking about digital activism.
Activism, yeah, of course.
And the trend to transformation. Sometimes a trend does not really come from an hashtag. It could come from anything. It could come from a government announcement. It could come from any of these laws that are being passed. And then somebody just decides, let's just talk about it. And it depends on the kind of interest and where you're putting it on. Like they used to say, some of these conversations start and grow mostly on X, being a social media platform. There are some conversations that if you bring it to Facebook, it's not going to go anywhere because I think audience matters, the kind of audience. So people would say, X are for maybe youths or people that have the activism, the activist spirit in them. But Facebook, people just want to chill, they just want to scroll. Or Instagram is just for posting pretty pictures and all of that. So when we talk about trend transformation, we should also take into consideration the kind of platform that we are putting it, because most of these things will start from a particular platform, which is X, and then it now goes into our various WhatsApp groups, and it now becomes a viral or a global movement. Yeah. So sometimes you just look at it and you're like, okay, digital activism is not only about hashtags. Sometimes it's also about actual conversations that's happened maybe in the government house, like I stated earlier, or maybe a bill has been passed. And I think we would have to look at some of the conversations we've had recently. Yeah, of course.
In
Africa.
We'll get to talk about that. We'll get to talk about that because it is very necessary for us to, get deep down into these conversations as we build up to the elections in 2027. And I tell you the truth, a whole lot of persons are probably sitting back in their rooms right about now, trying to think about what to do, what to bring up in the digital space, to get people to really get involved come 2027. Somehow to make people come out to do the needful, somehow to mar people's effort in the course of trying to come out to make people. But another question I would love to really put up, and I've been trying to see how to answer this question, would be why are young Africans always trying to use digital platforms for advocacy? Can't we actually do it real time,
it's
real life?
Simple because it is the most accessible, it is less restricted, and of course it costs little to nothing. It just costs you having a phone and maybe a data subscription, and then that's it.
But the other one could actually maybe seem even more easier, where we just need to take up to the streets, just need to stroll. You don't need to buy any data.
You are looking at it from the angle of maybe the normal way it should be. But someone like me or other people, they could think of the fact that they may get arrested if they just decide to just come up, and it may even be seen as incitement, like you mentioned earlier. So, but if some people even run anonymous accounts, if I am in the corner of my room with a faceless account, nobody knows who you are,
so you can also take to the streets and walk around and nobody wants to come back home safe.
Yes, rather than just say. So that's why I think social media or digital platforms rather are being used mostly, because it's accessible, it is less restricted, and it's also safer for before it goes viral. Of course, there are some people that would start this trend and they will start it with their full chest, like they are not scared of any arrest or anything. They are putting their name, putting their face to it, while most people just do it within the corners of their room, and they don't even have to show their face or anything.
But in my own opinion, I've been thinking that maybe sometimes if we really just take into doing the digital activism, it will probably not get us to have real-time situations, settled in real time. I'm talking about the aspect where sometimes we have decisions from government, those actually sitting at the helm of affairs, and then we put up stuff on social space.
Sometimes you think they are not on social media?
They are on social media, but sometimes they actually feel as though it is just a social media thing. So it is nothing.
Until it becomes big, until it becomes a big movement.
Exactly. So sometimes they have to wait until it becomes big. And what if it never becomes big?
It depends.
Okay, so for all the hashtags we've had over time, just a very few actually become big. some do not become big. Some just die just after they come out. And sometimes, I tell you the truth, Symbiat, sometimes we have real things, the most important things die just at the wake of their coming. And some that probably are not supposed to die are the ones that now come to bear. We'll get to name them in the course of our discussion. So my major concern would be, will government, those at the helm of affairs, actually look at these things on the social space and take them serious?
They do take them serious. I can, not 100%, but at least I can say that 50% they do take them serious, because it's just like putting in Nigeria, for instance, it's just like putting Nigeria on the spotlight, and because the social media space allows everybody from different parts of the world to see the country. Imagine if Nigeria is in a bad light and the hashtag is trending, and of course the government will see it. They would see it, and they will try to make amends, because the same way we come to criticize our government on social media, it's the same way we would also come to praise our government if they've done something right. And then it will also go viral. So it's just, I feel like they see it and they act on it.
Well, let's hope that they actually see it and they act on it. And maybe one other thing that we would want to really think about, I know as you're actually viewing us from home, you would also be thinking about whether these hashtags or this digital activism generally will actually lead to real changes and in real time, because these are major concerns. And maybe I should also have that, have us discuss that just a little bit. Has there ever been a time where we have digital activism? It started, digitally, and then at the end of the day, there were real changes to these things.
We've had so many. Like you mentioned that in the course of this conversation, we begin to list them. We've had so many that's happened just right from X. We had the NSAS protests that happened in 2020. We've had the hashtag Bring Back Our Girls movement. We've had the Shut It Down Now, the one that happened in Namibia. We've had so many that actually brought about real-time change. So I believe that it works. It works if we do it correctly and if we do it in the right way. If we do it in a way that it doesn't seem like incitement or calling for or maybe treason or something, I think it works.
Well, I've been there also, and yes, it is true that many times these digital activism actually gets to work, but sometimes we get to think how long they will work, because I've been thinking that maybe sometimes they just work and they work with a time frame, and just after that time they get to die down and they die forever. And maybe that will also form a part of our discussion when we return from just a very little break. But let me inform you that across the continent, we still have several hashtags, and we'll get to talk about them after this break. We'll take a break here, and when we return, we'll continue with our discussion this morning, where we're talking about trends to transformation in Africa. Do want to stay tuned. I'm seated here with Symbiat Hamzat. We'll be back soon.
Welcome to RAZEP Africa, the heartbeat of the continent in one show.
All right, you're still on to RAZEP Africa. Here we are unfiltered, we are unapologetic, and of course we are unafraid. And that is why we can sit back here to discuss very important issues that envelop us here in Africa. And this morning, just seated by my side is Symbiat Hamzat, and we're discussing the trend to transformation digital activism in Africa, where we have been discussing about a whole lot of activism that has happened over the years, and we're going to name them one after the other to see how they actually helped us. But note that across the continent, several hashtags have actually driven, several hashtag campaigns have sparked conversations that extended beyond just the social media. And these movements also highlighted issues around governance, sometimes security, other times human rights, and of course, social justice. And they bring both the local and the international attention to fore. In many cases, digital activism, it has unified voices, it has encouraged a lot of participation, and it has created pressure for response from institutions. So while outcomes actually differ, the impact of these campaigns continue to shape how civic engagement is practiced in Africa. And maybe from there, we'll be moving on to something very important, where we'll now talk about the aspect of this digital activism, replacing what we'll call the traditional peace movement or protest, if you like. And that is where we're going to start off this discussion, maybe before we just get to discuss about the several hashtags we've had over the time and how they've actually impacted our world today. So, Simba Tanzat, once again, welcome and good morning. Let's look at the aspect of digital activism, replacing the traditional, what we call peace movement, protests, and the likes.
I do not think digital activism can fully replace the traditional.
But it can partly.
Yes, they're just like a complement to them, because we get to mobilize people, we get to at least spark the interest from social media, and then people that are now they're now like, okay, this is actually a conversation that they want to join. Then they can now mobilize themselves, and then it becomes so we can't take out. It just makes it better. Digital activism just makes the whole traditional protest or traditional activism better. It makes it better, and it makes it easy to pull up a large number of people at the same time. If you look at some of the protests we've had, because I really followed the NSAS protest that happened in Nigeria in 2020 on X, it was formerly Twitter. So many people they started with like mobilizing each other. Oh, if you're in Lagos, and then it becomes Lagos axis, and then it becomes from street to street. People from one street are now started mobilizing each other. Then we had, before it now became global, before it became across Nigeria.
You mentioned the NSAS, but it took my mind quickly to something that happened to me while we were still in just about the time we finished our university days. Symbiat, I had a colleague who passed on because she was lured to a particular place for a job, and at the end of the day, they killed her and took some important parts just for sale and business. And then when we learned about her death, we decided to do a little bit of a peaceful walk, and then to commemorate her death. So we did that peace walk for her, but just in a department where we were just barely 100 students, we needed all students to get a part of it. So I had to put up the hashtag on the social space. Yes, again, hashtag. And I just put there, how do you put it? I think we wrote something for a newborn, and before we knew it, a whole lot of persons started reposting.
Even people that are not even within the university.
Exactly. So they started reposting, and we needed justice for a newborn Moren, justice for a newborn Moren. And at the end of the day, we had a whole lot of persons come out. And on that day, I was surprised because we just put a hashtag there, justice for a newborn Moren, and then asked people to put on a black. And I was surprised to have.
I didn't even know that, because I followed through this story, and I saw how how help sprang up from social media. We had someone trying to track the last scene, down to checking through those that replied her comments when she was searching for a job. People looking for maybe somebody offered her a job, then they went to. So it was so interesting to see even strangers pick up a case. So you would honestly think it doesn't concern you. Because of because of you started the hashtag, so it made even other people interested. People like me till today, I still think about it, and it's still part of me, because it was something that happened. Imagine if there was no the hashtag, I just had been one of many, because there will not be anything to track it. And today, even if you want to go back to that story, you just need the justice for a newborn, and then everything. So this is what we are talking about, and how much of help hashtag or digital transformation can mean to Africa. So
maybe just a little bit of going back to the hashtag that had the NSAS, Nigeria going ahead to, or Nigerians, let me be very straightforward, going ahead to protest against brutality. It just started, police brutality. And it just started from someone's corridor, having faced a whole lot.
talking about their own experiences.
Yes, exactly.
Police brutality and the special
Yeah,
anti-robbery squad,
exactly.
that's the SARS in Nigeria.
So it just started as if it was not going to start. People started talking about it, and before you know it,
jumps on it. Influencers, celebrities, and even activists.
Activists jumped on it.
Funny how most people now had a personal. It felt like a rage that you've been waiting to pour it all out, and then it just happens, and you just start pouring out your own because everybody had different kind of experiences. It was.
So people actually had faced this brutality over the time, but they never had a means to be able to talk about it, and not until the NSAS hashtag came.
The NSAS then was to end the SARS. There was like a particular about that SARS police
yes.
and also police reforms, and also for accountability of misconduct, and also compensation for victims. That was what and of course the aim was achieved, because
definitely
the SARS was officially disbanded, and also judicial panels were set up across several states. So when you say, do these conversations actually bring real change? They do bring real change, because for that meantime it's that it went viral. There were so many. Even government officials. It felt like a step up for the governments, for them to do the right thing, and they did right by Nigerians to make sure the SARS, but it was disbanded.
Well, gradually we also grow into the one that we had many years ago, and I know this one will really concern Simbiat Hamzat, because it happened that sometime in Nigeria still, we had what we call the Bring Back Our Girls hashtag. And then it was when Nigerians actually went out to campaign for the abducted Chibok
girls.
school
Started
girls.
in 2024.
So
I remember I followed through that story.
Yes. I know you were very concerned about this one, because of course.
Because I was young, and I was hoping that the movement would bring up a positive change. I was always listening to the news, and I saw the whole public outrage, the activism by civil society groups, and how much of global amplification by our political leaders and celebrities and other organizations. So the aim for that protest was just to secure the release of the abducted girls, and also to draw global attention to the insecurity happening in Nigeria, and also to pressure government just for them to was the aim achieved? Well, some of the girls were later rescued or released. And also,
it will interest to know that some are still being rescued even till today.
Yes,
it looks as though
global awareness, although sadly not.
It is looking as if it is actually a gradual process. So some set will be released. After some years, you hear another set of the girls are back. After some years, you hear another set of the girls are back. And funnily enough, it actually has actually come to a time where we are now seeing that hashtags could actually bring up, very importantly, they could bring up innovations that Nigerians will, one day want to actually go into. But still, maybe it comes back to the question where we ask if digital activism can still replace. Because in cases like these, where we say bring back our girls, and we know where our girls were taken to, can physical
a system
activism
that it can replace, it can just complement. Because at the end of the day, we need people, we need the drive, we need the physical drive, we need people to come out, not to just, if everybody stays at the comfort of their homes with their phone, there will not be real change. Of course, no, nothing will happen. Nothing will happen until one or two people, the brave ones, until they step out. I had to put that word,
the brave,
because some people will just be like, oh no, it just ends at just tweeting, and somehow they feel fulfilled for participating. Of course, if you don't have to. During the end, I didn't step out for once, but I was actively tweeting and retweeting, and I felt fulfilled. Like, yes, I contributed. I participated in this movement.
You're staying at home to tweet and retweeting. You think you actually did well?
I did. I participated. It was.
But the people actually gave their lives. The people actually gave their lives.
That's why I said the brave ones. That's why I said it, because you never can tell the outcome. You never can tell what will happen, what the aftermath would look like. It's just what you are saying that you have control about. You don't have control of what will happen later. So that's why I put that clause, the brave ones. Yeah.
Okay, maybe from there we also look at the one that actually did not happen in Nigeria, but this time around we'll be going to Zimbabwe, where we had Zimbabwe highlighting governance and economic concerns. And
this Zimbabwe Rights Matter.
Yes, so
this
they said
Zimbabwean modeled with the hashtag Black Lives Matter that happened back then. It gained traction in 2020 amid allegations of corruption, economic hardship, and political repression. Of course, activists, journalists, and citizens, they use social media to highlight governance concerns and also arrest of opposition voices. This particular protest was used to highlight governance issues, like I said earlier, to promote human rights and also to demand accountability from the government of Zimbabwe. Then I remember that was the aim achieved here. It increased global awareness, of course, and it amplified civic concerns. There were some political reforms that were made, and also there were some that were still limited. But of course, the protest happened and it achieved the aim. That's all that matters.
In real life, we would be thinking why Zimbabwe would actually come up with this particular one, because one would say if Nigeria is actually tagged as a developing nation, maybe, and as the giant of Africa, one would say, why would Zimbabweans actually stand up to say that they actually need good governance and economic concerns, reforms, of course. But, it's actually a major call for concern, because as things are not actually going well economically, it also affects the lives of people.
Do you know that if every African country wants to start a hashtag...
No, that's what I wanted to actually come to.
Nigeria Lives Matter. Everybody, it's valid.
Yes, that's what I was actually coming to, because to be very sincere with you, Simbiat, it is actually a major concern where we have people actually sit at the helm of affairs but do not actually do.
I think I'll start an hashtag Simbiat Lives Matter, like
Simbiat Lives Matter.
Yes, so that to draw concern that it could be better, things could be better for me. So like you said, it doesn't have to be something political. It could be something to improve yourself, and you could just start a trend on it, and you'd help me champion it.
Speaking about championing, let's go over to Ghana. Let's go over to Ghana, where we also had a hashtag there, and they said fix the country. This is where Ghana youth actually went out to lead a campaign, and it was a youth-led governance campaign that sparked national debates.
By a Ghanaian youth who was frustrated with unemployment, governance issues, and economic challenges. I like this particular hashtag thread because most youth in African countries suffer from these unemployment issues, and if somebody can come up and say, oh, this has to stop, and then it's caught the attention of several youths, even across Ghana, and then everybody jumps into the conversation and hashtag fix the country, give us job, the demand for better governance, and also make the government address the unemployment issues, to improve infrastructure, and so many other things that would even be of benefit to the overall country, to the overall nation. So the hashtag is also is a very good one.
And I actually paid attention to the grievances in Ghana, where the core grievances in Ghana were about governance, corruption, lack of accountability, expensive projects, lack of the likes of about $200 million national cathedral. And then it also moved to the economic concerns, where they talked about unemployment. I've already mentioned that, the high taxes, fuel prices, and cost of goods. And then it moved down to the social services, where they had concerns about the education system, healthcare, roads, and these are the things we're also crying about in Nigeria. And then it moved to the environment generally, where they talked about illegal mining and destroying of water bodies, the forests, the farmlands, and name them. All of these were concerns that made Ghanaian youths to come out and say it was time for all of those to stop. And one thing about this digital activism is that when it starts in the bedroom, and when it now comes to fore, it comes with a uniform. And sometimes in Nigeria, when we had the EndSARS, you could see people all with their green and then with the flag. You go to Ghana.
Even Nigerians in diaspora.
Yeah, even Nigerians in diaspora had to put on their green and white and then with the flags. And then in Ghana, you could see all of them with their reds. A touch of red anywhere, a cap, could be red, your trouser could be red, your shirt could be red, and all of that. So it comes with some sort of uniform. And these uniforms are the things that we get to see later in the social space that actually push the fact that these persons were actually serious. I cannot probably just sit back and say, I want to do something and probably I want to join, and I'm not ready to say, okay, they say, get a black shirt. Once I get the black shirt, it means I'm actually ready to push that thing comes to an end. And so we get to see that happen in all of these digital activism that now comes to fore. Now, moving away from there, we'll also go to Congo, where there was some thoughts that some bleeding in Congo should come to an end. And this was where the Democratic Republic of Congo had their own side of the story, where they said that Congo is bleeding. But it even comes up to Nigeria, where recently we have had Plateau is bleeding, you know, yes, and yeah, it was an hashtag too in Nigeria.
The Congo started by activists raising awareness about violence in Eastern Congo and exploitation of mineral resources.
Yeah.
I think that was the basic thing that facilitated it. There were so many videos of survivors and their survivors' account that were talking about this exploitation of mineral resources and how at the end of the day it affects human lives. They were killed, they were being manhandled, they were being slaughtered. So there was a need for that hashtag, there was a need for that campaign. The aim was to draw attention to humanitarian crisis, to also highlight exploitation of resources and call for international intervention. So was the aim achieved? Yes, it increased global awareness and advocacy through conflict in the region countries, because I got to hear about it through the hashtag. If there wasn't this campaign, a random African would probably not even know that such thing had been happening in Congo. So this is one, when we talk about train to transformation, it also means that everybody's involved one way or the other, because you pick up your phone and it is trending. In fact, everybody's talking about it. So even if you want to put a deaf ear and you're like, oh, maybe I don't even want to, somehow you'll be concerned because there is nothing happening on the social media space except for that particular thing. So you are forced to say, oh, what's even happening here? Let me check. Oh, this is so bad. And then you start, there's this human feeling that come, and then you're like, oh, this is not supposed to be so. Somehow in your own space, in your own corner, you're already having a conversation with another person. And before you know it,
it grows. And then before you know it, everyone wants to get involved. And even when you are not probably in that particular location, you just want to join it. And just like you mentioned, even if you don't go out, you know, to be a part of it physically, at least from the corner where you are, wherever you find yourself, you also join through the social space. And maybe it will now take us to the last one, where we'll actually talk about the one that happened in Namibia and South Africa, where they campaigned against gender-based violence. And this violence actually happened, and it was a very serious concern, where they actually had the hashtag where they said, shut it all down. Okay, so this was where we had this campaign about gender-based violence, and this actually still happens even here.
It still happens across Africa. It still happens. There is this last month, I think in March, I was trying to do a repository for one of the things that I do, and then it had to do with victims of feminicide. I was trying to track the number of cases we've had in Nigeria on feminicide for 2026, and it's surprising to find out that in just 3 months we've had over 100 reported cases, because there were so many that even happened that were not reported. And what helps me get through these stories were the hashtags. I just had to search, when you just search hashtag the person's name, and then you get to see more details on how it happened. Aside from the fact that it's really sad that we've had so many. If the hashtag wasn't there will not be a way to put a proper number to it or put a proper picture to it. It would just be vague. Oh, of course, feminicide happens. Oh, gender-based violence happens, but we would not know the extent to which it has happened. Surprising, in just 3 months, we've had over 100, and that page still keeps growing. If you go today to check, there's another update. There's another update, and you wonder when will it stop. So we shut it all down. I don't want to really want to incite anything, but I feel like if we decide to have another of this kind of campaign, it is very valid because the gender-based violence or feminism has not still stopped. We've not had any, maybe reduced, but there's not been actual real change, and it's still something of great concern, especially because I'm a female, and of course I am very concerned about.
Well, Simbiat, I don't want you to actually take it there, because I want to also inform you that we still have gender-based violence that concerns men also. So I don't know if you know that sometimes.
I do know that.
So I don't want you to actually take it and say because I'm actually a woman, but I want us to actually look at it overall, when we talk about the issue of violence. But that was just on the sideline where we had to discuss about the shut it all down issue of the hashtag issue that happened in Namibia and South Africa. But of course, that was basically talking about a few of them in Africa. And I tell you the truth, on the 25th of May in the year 2020, we had the one that happened somewhere outside Africa, where we had the George Floyd murder by some police officers, and then global protests now erupted. About 15 to 26 million people participated in the BLM protest in the US, making it one of the largest protest movements in the US history. And that was when George Floyd, a black man, Black Lives Matter, came up. And that was just a part of it. But of course, we had to talk about the moving from trend to transformation. And our major focus this morning was on digital activism in Africa. Of course, because this is RAZEP Africa. And so, Simbiat, and that is where we will gradually come to an end.
Okay, but we also should note that digital activism is not something that would end anytime soon. It's as long as humans continue to evolve, as long as the digital space continues to come, everybody, we are still going to have so many more. I don't want to say protests, but we're still going to have so many more hashtags, so many more conversations.
Yeah, just use activism. We're going to have
many more activisms that will spring up on social media. Yeah.
Therefore, digital activism will continue to reshape how conversations around governance, justice, and social change unfold across Africa. So, hashtags have been created over the time, and they have created space for participation, and they have amplified voices and have drawn attention to issues that demand action. So, while not every campaign results in immediate transformation, the influence of these digital movements continues to grow. As Africa's digital landscape expands, the focus now shifts to translating online momentum into sustained engagement and meaningful outcomes. The journey from trend to transformation ultimately depends on how these voices evolve beyond the screen and contribute to lasting change across the continent. And that's where we draw the curtain this morning. Let me thank you very much, Simbiat Amzat, for accepting to join us this morning.
Oh, thank you very much for having me. And I've not forgotten that you promised us a fang and so many things that you brought back.
Yeah, I said I promise you.
We're going to have a feast, but
I'm hoping that when joy returns, we'll be able to do that.
Okay.
That's been the size of it today on RAZEP Africa on Global TV. I've been sitting here with Simbiat Amzat. I am Uime Anete. Do enjoy your day.